Today we will be making, or this evening I should say, we will be making some bread. This is just a regular loaf of bread that I'm going to prepare at night, and it'll be ready to bake the next morning. So it's an overnight loaf. It's very simple, it's very quick. It's honestly the easiest bread recipe. I make it about 3 times a week and it's delicious. So let's get to it. The first thing that I need is 4 cups of flour. And then I will put, where's my, 1 teaspoon of yeast. Next, I will put 1 teaspoon of salt. Maybe 2. So I'm going to mix these things together a bit. So whisk, just mix that together. I'm not doing anything to activate the yeast right now. This is dry active yeast because it's going to sit overnight and it's going to sit in the moisture. This recipe does not require kneading. It will rise plenty throughout the night. Let's add the water. It's just cold water that I'm adding, nothing special. I have well water here. If you live in a city and you have city water, you should actually use either bottled water, or you should just let your water sit out on the counter for several hours. You don't want to just use city water to make bread. It won't rise properly. So I'm going to add the water. So I filled up a quart here. I'm going to see how much water I use. I tend to just eye things. Sometimes depending on how much flour I put in, I'll need a different amount of water. So I can see that I need more water. It's way too dry. And I'll let you know down below how much I end up using. But this will come together super quick. I don't like it to be too dry. I want it to be more wet. When I add water, I won't just add it to the middle here. I'll add it kind of to the side where I see there's a lot of flour that isn't moist at all. So I'll just mix it. It's going to get nice and sticky. Okay, and it's a lot more wet now. This is super sticky. If I tried to touch this with my hands, it would get everywhere, be stuck to me. If I did need to touch it though, I could just put some water on my fingers and then it wouldn't stick to me quite as much. That's what I will do to get it off of the whisk. I want to make sure it's fully mixed though. I don't want there to be flour at the bottom of the bowl. Just to elaborate on not using city water, oftentimes city water has a high concentration of chlorine, and the chlorine can react poorly with the yeast. Therefore, to be able to use city water, you should leave a cup of water out, or as much water as you need, out overnight or for at least 4 hours, because most of the chlorine will dissipate and then that water can be used. You should be looking for consistency as you see here, and once you reach that, it is ready to rest overnight. I ended up using about 2 cups or half a quart of water. The next morning, the bread is ready to be shaped. So this is often what people find to be the most challenging part about making bread, but really dough is something that the more you work with it, the more familiar and confident you'll become, and it gets easier and easier. Here you see me scraping the dough from the sides of the bowl. My fingers are wet here, so the dough is not really sticking to my fingers. I'm just going around the bowl and making sure that there's nothing left stuck. The dough that I scrape from the sides, I push into the center, and this builds tension, which will allow me to work with the dough without having it stick to my hands and everything. So here I've put the dough on a work surface that is well floured. Flour will really be your friend here so it doesn't stick to you. And I'm just doing sort of an envelope folding system where I bring all sides into the center. I flip it over onto the other side, and then this is where I really am going to make sure I have enough flour so that nothing sticks to my hands, and I'm going to keep shaping it where I sort of push the sides underneath and I'm trying to build more and more tension. You don't want it to be too tight, but the more you work with it, you'll feel that it really starts to form a firmer ball, and it shouldn't be sticking to your hands at this point at all. Once I'm done that, I'll take the remainder of the flour and I'll just brush it on top, and it's ready to be transferred to some parchment paper. I'll place a cloth over it and it'll rest for a short period of time while the oven preheats. When I was preheating the oven, I already put my Dutch oven in it. If you don't have a Dutch oven, don't worry, you can use a sheet pan. I then took the Dutch oven out and now I'm transferring the bread to it. So it only really rose for about 10-15 minutes, honestly. I'm going to cut it with some scissors, honestly, nothing fancy. I didn't have time to do any fun design. And then I'm going to place it back in the oven. The temperature I have it at is 425 and I will let it cook for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes is up, I will remove the lid. This will be what allows it to get a nice crust. I'll cook it for another 20 minutes at 435. Once your timer goes off, your bread is ready. I do recommend letting it cool completely before you cut into it. Sometimes the bread will collapse if you cut into it before it's fully cooled. To be honest, my kids barely let me wait for it to be fully cooled, so I commit that cardinal sin, as you see here, and I cut into the bread before it's fully cooled. Just be very gentle and very careful with it to make sure that it doesn't completely collapse on you. Once you get a hang of making bread and using this recipe to make it overnight, and see how simple it is, honestly, you will never be able to go back to store-bought bread. I usually store this loaf in a paper bag within a Ziploc bag. I then leave it in a bread box on the counter. There are no preservatives in this bread, therefore it will go bad a lot quicker than store-bought bread. I also recommend getting a bread knife like you see here. I hope you'd enjoy the recipe and let me know how it turns out.